So we just talked about deriving a consumer budget constraint with $100 as the total income, where the price of food is $20 and the price of clothing is $10. And again, we had this idea in mind that consumers spend all of their income on these two products. And we consequently had a budget constraint that reflected the income and the prices, and where the relative price of clothing was 1/2 unit of food for every unit of clothing. I didn't use these units before, but those in fact would be the units associated with that. But that's basically the slope of this budget constraint, is 1/2 F for every C. If I buy a unit of C, I give up the opportunity to buy 1/2 a unit of F given these prices. Okay. Now, a lot of times when you think about using a budget constraint in analysis of outcomes, you're going to look at, for example, how prices affect the budget constraint and then how people respond to that. So I want to imagine a situation where the price of clothing goes up to being the same as food. It doesn't matter whether it's the same. What matters is that the price of clothing goes up, but with income remaining unchanged. And that's actually an important part. We're going to have the same level of income, but the price of clothing goes up. Now, there are a couple of ways to think about this. One, and probably the one that that people will generally do, is to think about how does it affect the budget constraint itself. Okay, so let's think about that. We've got $100 of income. The price of food is $20 per unit of food. We can buy exactly the same amount of food as before. But if we only bought food, that's how much we could buy. Still the same. Price hadn't changed, income hadn't changed. What you have had is that the price of C has gone up. If I only bought clothing at $20 per unit of C, and I have $100 of income, I can't buy 10 anymore. I don't have enough money. I will only be able to buy 5 units of clothing if the income is 100 and the price of clothing is 20. So what you see is the following. The budget constraint shape will change if one of the relative prices change. I told you before about how the slope of the budget constraint is the relative price. What is the slope of this budget constraint? It's 5/5. It's 1-to-1. The relative price of clothing now, when they both cost the same thing, I'm going to give up 1 unit of F for every C that I buy. If I spend money on clothing at $20 per unit of clothing, I give up the opportunity to buy 1 unit of food. So the budget constraint will rotate down through that point if only one of the prices changed. Okay? Now, let's look at a different situation where how does the budget constraint change if income rises. And I want to go back to the situation where we've indeed had that price increase go up, but the main thing is that we have the price of C and food being the same. Okay, we've got that slope is 1-to-1 now. And let's suppose that income now is 200. We've got the prices at 20 and 20, but now we have double the income. Well, I mean, without doing any math, if you've got double the income and the prices stay the same, you'll be able to buy twice as much. You would be able to buy 10 units of F or 10 units of C or any combination in between. Now, one of the things about this change in income and its effect on a budget constraint. Here's where the income was $100 and the prices given here. When you have just strictly an increase in income, what that's going to do is that it's going to shift that budget constraint out. And so again, the concepts of this really, it's every day. If I get more income, if I have more resources, I'm going to be able to consume more of both goods. I got more money. Now, how much I decide to buy of the two goods depends on whether, how much I like one versus the other. But there's no doubt that an increase in income will shift that budget constraint out. So again, we've talked about two different ways in which a budget constraint can change. One is if the relative prices change, and that's going to change the slope of the budget constraint. Okay, that's one type of change that you might have. And the other is if you have unchanging prices and your income goes up, then you have a parallel shift. So both of those will be important in different contexts, and this is a useful reminder of how that process might work.